Right.
Ultimately, punishments are teaching tactics, and they should be part of nurturing and
Right.
guiding. And so I don't have to, as parents, our job is not just to stop bad behavior, but to encourage good behavior. And my favorite joke of all time is, as soon as your child was conceived, you lost control. You have no control. We're under this illusion also that we have control over our kids.
Right.
You need the child to learn self-control.
Absolutely.
And so it's very empowering for parents to say, well, you can grab that toy from your sister again if you want, but
Right.
now you know. Everything stops until you can practice being a good brother or asking for help or whatever behavior that you want to see instead.
In my mind, I have so many questions for you, but one of the things that it really bothers me now, especially with kids, say 4 and under, is this whole idea of these play dates where you're forced to share. I think if I'm writing a note with a pen and Renee were to just come grab the pen out and somebody said, well, you're supposed to share with her, it would make me very upset. I'm not done with the pen. And this helicopter parenting now, it's you need to share and your turn is over. Why? Why is my turn over? I picked up the fire truck and I'm playing with the fire truck. Why do we have to get into this forced sharing thing?
Yeah.
Because I think that you need to share with Timmy. Timmy will get his turn eventually. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think it's a good point, and I think that part of that evolution of the culture of parenting, if you will,
They interfere. They are the ones playing, directing the play.
the parents are the ones controlling.
Yeah.
It's like control freaks.
It's controlling.
Instead of just letting the kids play like they used to do.
I tell those parents, I say, I hope you're getting a double when they move to college, because they're going to need you, right? Again, the whole point is that when my back is turned, I don't need to worry, are you making good decisions or not, because as the kids get older, they have more independence and more freedom. I mean, nobody gets offered a cigarette or, alcohol with mom standing right next to them.
Right.
So the kid has to learn how to deal with those things on their own. And I think part of it is that there's, on some level, people intuitively get that. Just saying, don't you keep that toy to yourself, or don't be selfish. It doesn't work. There are better ways to be assertive. There are better ways to say, well, I'm almost done with this and I'll give you a turn when I'm done.
It's not even really being selfish. That's an overused word to me.
Yeah.
Because if I'm playing with the fire truck and I got it first, I'm not being selfish. I simply am not done playing, much like I'm not done writing my letter.
Yeah. And I think there's some
It-
fear there too that the kids won't be able to navigate it on their own, and that's part of letting go. But again, when you use good discipline that promotes a child making better choices, one of my favorite sayings is the kid has to care about it more than the adult does.
Yes.
If we care about it more than they do, now they need the toothbrush and the toothpaste and dad standing over his shoulder, which is the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Right.
And so it's fun, and one of my, there's a lot of little things in the book, but one of the studies that I cite is they interviewed preschoolers who had just gotten out of timeout, which I just think is an amusing idea.
Yeah.
Every single kid knew why they were in timeout. I stole my friend's toy, or I didn't listen to the teacher. The magic of the study was, well, why are you still in timeout? The number one answer was, teacher doesn't love me.
Oh,
I know.
that's sad.
But the number two was, teacher's mean.
Oh.
You have to go further on down the ladder to about number 6 or 7 before they say, gee, I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
And these artificial terminations of punishments after, you're not boiling an egg here. And so if I'm motivated now, and you won't let me get out of timeout now, again, part of that, using the motivation on their own, is to figure out some explanation for why am I still in this chair. Either they don't love me or the teacher's a jerk, right? This way, we're putting all the burden on the kids, and we're giving them more of a chance to have control over their own fate. So if you don't have control over your child, you have control over expectations, and you have control over consequences, and no control over the child.
Well, it's interesting because someone once told me that it's much more difficult to be a parent that raises an independent child. And
Yes, it is.
and that's absolutely true. There's no doubt. You can I think a lot of parents control the situation and they hinder the growth of their own child. And then they question why their kids aren't developing, say, in college, the way that they had anticipated or had hoped that they would. And it's really because they didn't relinquish some control.
They didn't need to learn how to self-control. They did
Right.
not have to learn how to because we were doing it for them.
Exactly.
And so what I've put together is not just technically sound, because who really cares about that? We want something that actually is
That works.
replacing bad with good. And so it's embedded right into the plan that you are not relying on the young child to figure out how to fill that void. Well, if I can't hit, I'm going to kick. So
Right.
the phenomenon, we're programming the little computer. I always say if you could rewind the videotape and you had a Stepford child, not that we want that, but just to think about
Right.
what that means. Because again, I think liking to be in control and liking to be, in charge and directing yourself those are positive things. Being manipulative is inherent to being a successful person. I think so. I had to manipulate to find a printer.
Right.
Right.
You had to
It's being
manipulate to get,
resourceful.
yeah, these things are not inherently bad.
Right.
The same child who studies all night to get an A has the same potential to find the test in the teacher's drawer and cheat the next day. They're the same kid.
Right.
I mean, there is a fine line between a criminal and a cop. So,
And that's a great line.
Yeah, that's a great line.
so we're trying to promote this self-control.
Have you had any experiences, or what do either of you think about this technique? Can you see it working on either of your men in your life, your guys, your kids? Or can you see that? I definitely can. I'm so excited to try to use this technique.
Me too.
So I think it's answering some of my stressed out questions that I asked you earlier.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
I think it sounds like a great idea. I found I did use timeout on my son when he was younger than you were supposed to, but it was an open door policy.
Yeah.
Like he would have friends over, something would happen, he would hit or he would scream or grab a toy, and for me it was more of I'll separate you from the situation.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be nice to the people around you, or whatever the case was, you can come sit over here. When you're done throwing your fit, you can come out, we'll talk about it. And that seemed to work for him, and I haven't had to do it
Yeah.
since he was little, but
A lot of parents will do that. They'll even when they're using the more conventional ideas of an age-based timeout method, a lot of parents will have that talk with their kids. Now, next time I want you to. One of the things we know though is, especially for little boys learn by doing, and so we don't want to leave it to chance that hopefully somebody will steal his toy and he'll do the right thing. We want to give him an opportunity right now, because if you think about the function of that screaming at his friend, they're friends. So why is he screaming? Well, he may not know how to deal with that particular conflict.
right.
And it may develop over time. I mean, the fact is that you really see the flaws in these old school punishments when you have the more challenging kids. So there are plenty of kids who respond to the typical strategies. This is really more to make it as efficient as we possibly can, so we minimize the need for punishment in the future. A lot of these typical things will work for the moment, but we don't parent for the moment. We parent for tomorrow, so
For a
that the need for
lifetime.
me to discipline this child has been reduced.
Right.
And so if you think about the function of what got the kid into the predicament in the first place, if we can give them a better way of handling the same situation, for every aggressive behavior there's an assertive counterpart. And so if we kind of think about, well, gee, it would have been better if he would have asked nicely for a turn, or would have come to mommy if somebody was bothering him, then we don't have to wait until it happens naturally. We can contrive a situation that gives the child immediately, and it's still fresh in their mind.